Okay, let's commence. Welcome as stated to the Microsoft and OSC webinar. Today's webinar is on Azure AD and Enterprise Application Integration. This is a series from OSC Technologies, a Azure technical consulting firm, and this is an educational webinar directly discussing how to take your web and mobile applications and integrate it into Azure AD. We are very fortunate today to have David Chou from Microsoft, a platform director. The agenda will be as follows. We have an intro led by David about what is Azure AD, how it's being used in the enterprise, and then what we're going to do is have Julian Zhu, managing partner from OSC and technical guru at Azure and applications, and he will discuss and show demos that directly relate to how to take Azure AD and integrate it into applications. He will talk about several of the issues around your applications and how to do this securely. After the demo, we'll have some pointers on what to remember and a quick overview on OSC by myself. That being said, let's jump into it and have David start with an overview on Azure. Take it away, David.
Yeah. Thank you, Garrett. And so we start with a quick overview of Microsoft Azure. As many of you might know, Azure is Microsoft's cloud platform. And the way we look at it and sort of why we're using this slide to show you is that Azure is not just a hosting service for your server applications. We also have, and that's basically what we think of as infrastructure service, basically networking, compute, storage, the basics of hosting applications. So Microsoft has also been very busy at building out a lot of the platform services, which are managed services that are already running in Azure that you can use and consume as ready-to-use services. And in a way, think of these as APIs. And using APIs with already baked-in, fully redundant, highly available services can help rapidly develop the applications and deployment in the cloud and also use much more enhanced capabilities. And Azure AD, Active Directory, is one of those core pillars of the advanced features in Azure. So think of this entire Microsoft Azure platform as a new platform for building the next generation applications. One, for example, I'll talk about one of the games that it's not exactly an enterprise application, but it's the interesting point to talk about it is by leveraging cloud optimized architecture. An online game called Age of Ascent. We were working with Age of Ascent team to build this in Azure. It was able to, and just in a test run, it was able to handle something like 260 million messages per second. And with that kind of volume, it's capable of supporting more than 100,000 concurrent users in the same battle space. Right? So that's the kind of scalability and reliability that would be otherwise a little bit harder to do with your own architecture in a completely on-prem architecture, for example. But in the cloud, it's much easier, and we can build that type of applications by leveraging a lot of the capabilities within the cloud. And the next slide, please. Thank you, Garrett. So now we take a quick look at Azure Active Directory. As you know, Active Directory, the name from a tradition perspective, it is Microsoft Identity Management Solution. And now within Azure, it's not just a hosted instance of Windows Server running an instance of Active Directory for you to use. It really is one of the managed services that's capable of supporting millions and billions of users. In fact, you can see some of the big numbers that we have on the slide right here. Like, for example, it handles more than 1 billion authentications per day. So it's a very highly redundant, highly scalable, fully reliable service. But it's not just Active Directory as well. This being one of the core pillars within Azure and the sort of the development strategy roadmap as well, we're building a lot of scenario as well as advanced features around Active Directory as well. And we'll see some of those things today within the presentation. But basically, you think of Active Directory as a ready-to-use service that you can use right away when you deploy something in Azure or build an application in Azure. You don't have to manage or configure the Active Directory instance yourself. Basically, it's just a few mouse clicks to get started, and you would have a ready-to-use Active Directory service with all of the advanced capabilities that we built into it. Next slide, please. In here, we talk about some scenarios for enterprises that could be using Azure Active Directory with. So thousands of apps, one identity, that basically means single sign-on. Right? So, and single sign-on across on-prem or cloud application, and also means integrating with mobile applications, or third-party SaaS, software as a service applications. So basically using one identity and going through Azure AD, your business and your users will be able to access all kinds of services. And similarly, going through the rest of the list really quickly is things like self-servicing and the fine-grained management of groups and users and privileges. These are things that make the IT management of identity easier within the cloud. And there are things we can do like creating temporary groups and access to collaborate with B2B, business-to-business partners, enabling mobile access, and then implementing identity-driven security. And then there are more advanced features that we're building. For example, there's Active Directory, Azure AD B2C, which is a service intended to be used for servicing millions of consumer identity. And one of the case studies we published on that was with Real Madrid, the football, the American soccer team in Madrid. It's a very famous team. And they deployed a solution in Azure that supports and handles their 450 million user base, and uses Azure AD to manage the identities for the application. And then there are other things, like for example, using your domain controller as a service. And then there's other things on the roadmap that are coming, for example, like identity protection and advanced threat analytics. So there are a lot of things that we're doing from Microsoft's perspective to make sure that Azure AD is not just an AD in the cloud that you can use to manage identities, but there's also a lot of advanced capabilities that we're building as part of the roadmap. And with that, I'd like to turn back to Garrett, and thank you for your time.
Fantastic. And there's some nice lead in there, because what David was saying was that Active Directory Azure allows us to put one identity in the cloud and use it from multiple resources for single sign-on. So to take that away, I'm going to have Julian Zhu, our managing partner here, dialogue about the following. First, what I'm going to have him do is he's going to go over the AD console and explain how to administer and just quickly what it looks like, etc. What's relevant in single sign-on is always relevant, because single sign-on brings security. We actually have a white paper up there on our website. We provided an SP and an IDP for an enterprise. What's relevant is passing the identity back and forth from your enterprise over to Azure AD. The one ways to do it, and the ways we could do it with mobile and web apps, is SAML and OAuth. But what Julian is also going to go through is how to dialogue to the actual directory using the Microsoft Graph API, and then we'll talk a little about the actual apps, and it'll show that, and we'll actually have some pointers of what to keep your heads up when doing this integration. Okay, with that, I'm going to get done with the slideware and pass the baton over to Julian. Sound good, Julian?
Yes, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Dave. So this is Julian. I'm one of the managing partner and the principal consultant at OSC Technologies. Prior to OSC, I was an enterprise architecture team senior manager and enterprise digital solution architect working for CVS Health. So I have many years of experience in the retail, pharmacy, healthcare, and the technology domain. So what I'm going to do, thank you for the introduction that Dave provided overview for the Microsoft Azure, the capability offering. So I wanted to take this time to give you some real things like happening within the cloud, so that you can see and feel like what the Microsoft Azure can offer for your application integration purpose. So what I'm doing, we can see my screen here. I'm logging to the Microsoft Azure console, so you can see from the console. Basically, this is what I'm logging as the admin for this directory, and you can see currently there's two directories created here. because of the cloud offering, you can easily create the Active Directory within seconds, right? You can just click a button, say I'm going to create a directory, and then you can start using the directory in just a few seconds. So for the demo purpose, I created 2 directories here. One is the default directory, and I use that to show the capability typically the company will do to maintain their employee identity and also the business partner user's identity. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click this button and go to this default directory. And here, there's the new portal Microsoft Azure provide. There's a lot of capabilities there. Today's demo is going to be focused on the Active Directory. So click the Active Directory. This basically is another levels of authentication. I'm just logging. As the admin for this Active Directory. And you can see the common attributes of things you can normally see in the traditional on-premises Active Directory. So waiting for the page to load, and then you can see what I'm talking about here. There's a dashboard view, and you can see the dashboard summary view for that Active Directory. You can see applications associated with the Active Directory, things like that nature. So it's basically an admin dashboard view. But let's jump to the things like store the information for the user identity. Users and the groups, those are traditional concepts of the Active Directory, right? So here I created a bunch of test user identity in this directory. So let me just jump to the demo application we talked about here. So I'm sorry, I actually clicked the wrong button here. Let me go to this IDE, right? This is a typical Java application the company usually developed for the web or sometimes for the mobile as well. So if we have time, we can cover some of the mobile piece as well. But the concept is exactly the same. So this is a Java application I developed for the demo purpose, and so there's the Java application we deployed to the Tomcat.
And Julian, what's relevant,
yes.
and I'm sorry, is that it doesn't matter where the application is. Like this is in a different private cloud other than Azure, and you're still connecting, correct?
Correct. Because the beauty of this is that everything's in the cloud, so it doesn't matter
right.
You develop your in-house application, you host outside for your business partners, you can deploy it anywhere. You can talk to the cloud infrastructure for the identity management.
It's just as David Chou said. It's one directory serving up all our apps, be it on-premise, in cloud, in the Azure cloud, or in other people's clouds. Yes.
Correct. So I showed earlier the IDE for the Java application called the OSC demo application. I already deployed it here. And when I go to this application, this is the application we showed earlier. Right, so typical application, the company developer usually have a public pages like this one. This is a landing page or a public information, whatever does not require authentication. And then there's a secure page, usually requires a user authentication. That's where the Active Directory identity authentication come in play. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to walk through this demo and then jump back to the Active Directory on the console side, and then we can try to link these things together. Right, so I'm click here, access the secure page, and what this is going to happen is because that's a secure protected page, this is request the authentication. Because I logged in before, so I have some we remember the user identity here. Yeah, otherwise it's going to be a new login page. You need to provide the username and the password. For the demo purpose, putting the username and the password. And obviously, those username and password is being stored within the cloud, the Microsoft Azure Active Directory. And say I'm logging as a demo account, and I access this secure page. Let me jump back to, just show a quick thing here. This is like a listing of the users in the directory. And then let me jump back to here. This is equivalent to the information here. I made an API call to access directory information by the application. Right? So you can see how those things tie together. And let me go back to the application here, just to highlight a few key things here. So when you log in using the identity management or the single sign-on, first thing you want to figure out typically is to identify the user. So in this case, we basically identify this login user, and then from the application, your application, you can take from there to further doing the authorization, what the user can do within your application ties specifically to your business logic. And then there's an access token. I want to highlight this. Access token that ties to the OAuth or the SAML authentication scenario. You need this. This is the key for the application to access the other resources within that Microsoft Azure. That could be tied into, let me show you that quickly, tied to the like a graphic API, which we showed on the previous screen. You can access the resource from Active Directory, and then you can make a calls to get a list of Active Directory information. Or you could access the Office 365, which is offered from the Microsoft as well. And then you could call the API
Julian,
to access the services.
The Graph API, that's what you just used in your last demo, right? To extract information from the directory.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is where it shows this is a graphic API call. So the good news is that Microsoft is moving towards an open standard approach, meaning that from the API, from the how you want to integrate this platform, is not just a Microsoft proprietary API. It's an open standard. You could use Java, Perl, PHP, Python, all the different kind of language, or even like a single page application typically use a JavaScript to integrate. Because those are based on the RESTful API you could use.
Got it.
So another thing I want to jump back to the console is we have actually identity in the directory, right? That's one thing. And then how does that tie to the application? So here I want to show you, highlight this in the application configuration. It's a very easy, straightforward. And for the application to leverage the identity management capability within the cloud, you can simply just click Add a new application. So the Azure basically offers you the different options. The one, typically the company developing their own application, you basically select Add an application like my organization is developing. I will jump back to show you some of the metadata for my demo application so you can see some of the details there. Or you could add application.
You did for your app? Is that what you did for your app? Yeah. Okay.
That's right. Yep. That's normally, typically, I think the company is going to be doing.
Okay.
And the second one, we're going to come back. This is more like add application from the gallery. I just want to give you some feel. This is probably hundreds of thousands of applications already here. Okay, this total shows the 2,626 applications. Is out of the box, you are ready to integrate with the third-party applications. So I'll come back to demo some of the features here. For the demo purpose, I created or added application such as GoToMeeting, and also added a Salesforce application for the demo purpose. I will show that later. But back to here, this is the application, my application, OSC demo web app. I'm gonna click here, and this will give you some information around how easy to manage those things, right? So this application, you could manage the user and the groups at the user and group level. Basically, you can control within your Active Directory who can access or not access to those applications. So this is typically used by your company AD security admin to control the certain application access. So obviously, this is kind of a manual process, and Azure provides the API. You could automate this based on your business process. And here's the configuration, basically where you set the metadata, how the configuration to support the identity management ties to the Active Directory identities. So you can see this is the URL, basically the demo URL I showed you earlier, right? And then there's the client ID. Client ID is important because that's where the API and Azure is tracking where those application requests are coming from.
Yeah,
and then you can add
that's the application ID, right?
That's the application ID, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can add additional, like a security to add a secret or keys for your application to use. So those basically to identify who, from the application perspective, which application can make a call to the Azure. But that's not good enough. That's at the application level, right? And from the authentication level, you basically need to request the user to authenticate themselves, provide their username and password. That's a user level authentication. So you can see, there's a certain levels of control you can add to how the user can access the application. But it's pretty straightforward, but it also provides a pretty comprehensive control of the policy. So this is where it's in addition to the user identity, you have the policy you can configure for each of the application.
Got it.
So,
what's interesting about this you're showing is not only if it's a directory, it also can serve as the IDP in the cloud, right?
That's right.
Accepting the OAuth and SAML tokens.
That's right.
Got it.
And here I wanted to also mention a couple of more things here is the permissions to other applications. So the Microsoft Azure not only provide their own Microsoft services like Office and Active Directory. As I mentioned earlier, this API you can access those information from this API for this platform, and also you could add the other application and provide a configuration what kind of permission you can grant to those applications. So it's an application granular level in addition to the user application level. So let me jump back to the application here.
Okay.
So we talked about those API calls, and now we want to show you the third-party application SSO integration. So in this case, add the Salesforce.com as a demo. So if I click here, this page, keep in mind I already authenticated as a user to the Azure, provide Active Directory user credentials. When I click the Salesforce.com, and the system by configuration, which I want to show that later, automatically single sign on the user to the Salesforce. So this is the Salesforce platform. I have a test account here. This is login as
and that pulled the identity from the Azure AD, right?
Right.
And then it also did a federated sign-on via SAML or some other mechanism. Is that correct?
That's correct. High level, that's correct. So
okay.
At the granular level, I can show you here is there's a very flexible the ways you could do the third-party application authentication single sign-on setup. So for example, here, let me click Salesforce here. I can show you some of the attributes or the configuration metadata here. So first, once again, this can be controlled at a very granular level. So it goes down to the user and the group. At the same time, you can see the single sign-on, configure single sign-on, you have different options. So I show you on the screen, there's the 3 typical options now offered by the Microsoft AD in the cloud. So the one I selected just for the simple demo, this is a password-based single sign-on. And when I get the authentication, I provide the Salesforce password, username password, and so that the Azure, when they log into my application, I can automatically authenticate user by providing the user-provided username password to the third-party application. But more interestingly, you could have the other options. Like for example, the first one is called a federation using a SAML-based, standard-based federation for the SSO. You could do that as long as you have the appropriate configuration on the both sides. So in this case, Microsoft behaves acts as the identity provider because your identity is within the Azure Active Directory, you authenticate it. And the third-party application is the service provider, right? So in that scenario, it's basically the federated SAML authentication scenario.
Yeah,
and also,
that's really powerful.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's like so enterprises not only get the directory that it can serve up to all their applications, but they're also getting the built-in IDP to communicate to all these service providers. Yes.
Exactly. So the third one also for the flexibility purpose, right? The Microsoft is building some mechanism you have already built for the single sign-on, and then they could build the integration channel into those third-party applications or your existing legacy applications. So the takeaway here is I think a lot of things have been built within this platform. Requires some integration effort for sure because you need to make sure that your application is talking to the right identity provider and your third party is being managed appropriately. But this platform provides a lot of out-of-box capability, allow you to do the user-level authentication for your homegrown application as well as for the third-party, security single sign-on integration.
Got it.
So with that, I don't know if we have time to show quickly a difference between this is actually directly as I showed you earlier. I have two directories. The directory we showed earlier.
Why don't you take a few seconds to do that? I'll make my section a little briefer because this is good stuff. Let's show the audience that. So do you have two directories, one for the B2E, one for the B2C?
Yes. So Microsoft also have a B2C. So let me just log in here to show you the B2C.
Yeah, and this is cool. Massive scaling.
And even though I have for the demo purpose, I have a kind of a long domain name here. For the enterprise use, certainly, the AD provides the flexibility. You can create your own domain tied to whatever the Active Directory instance you have. So what I'm showing you here, this is a B2C portal. I'm sorry, the B2C Active Directory. So come back here, this is a B2C. So from the identity management perspective, the concept is exactly the same as the B2E and the B2B. But here is from the user case standpoint of view, the difference is B2C AD typically is used for your customer-facing navigation.
Right.
In other words, it's pretty flexible. You allow your customer or new users to sign up for your application. And because the social identity, the platform is so popular, so this capability provides a lot of flexibility around how the customer can sign up. So I want to highlight that. Other than that, the other things is exactly the same. So here you can identify or define the application you're building. The concept is the same. You basically define the application, how the user being authenticated, and what's the actually identity. But at the same time, I want to show you here the identity providers, right? So in addition to native identity provider offered by the Azure platform, you could add the other social identity platform providers like Google, Facebook, Twitter, others, right? So you need to get an appropriate client ID, like if you wanted to talk to the platform, but that's pretty straightforward. You can easily, set up the development client ID keys, and you configure here. You can see it's very straightforward to set it up. And once you set it up, you define your policies. What kind of identity provider you're going to use for your custom application. Let me just quickly jump to what the UI looks like when you integrate this kind of a capability into the application. So what I'm showing here on the screen.
Got your mobile app going, eh?
Yeah, this is a mobile app.
Right.
Just to show you, actually, this is my phone here. So let me.
Yes.
Hopefully, nobody's sending me my bank information at this point. So, but anyway, this is a demo app, right? So I developed for the demo purpose. This is developed on the Android device. So you can see this is for the B2C AD demo. Basically offers you.
Closer to the center of the screen. Move it to this screen. There you go.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can see there's a sign in and a sign up, right? For the new customer, typically you want to get a new customer for your app. You basically offer them the flexible way of a sign up. And how they're going to sign up is all controlled by the policy you saw before in the console. And in this case, I set up as a Google as a social identity sign up. You don't need to do any coding. You just configure your B2C AD policy, and you set up the appropriate development key and to the Google platform. Right? And from here, you basically have the customer have choices there. You can either use a native AD sign up using their email accounts and their password, or they can basically use a Google sign up. Right? So very quickly, just for the demo purpose here, let me put in something I already created. So let me just put in some testing password here.
Okay. And the password's coming from, is this doing OAuth?
No, this is a Google account, right? So we're using the Google Authentication. So this is the Google username and password. So I'm trying to sign up, but this account has already been registered, right? So I don't need to do the sign up anymore. But this just show you the concept here, right? So and then you can sign in using the same account, you can do the similar thing here. Basically, you have a choices there. I can sign in as a Google user, right? I provide my identity from the Google profile, which is Google in this case is behave as an identity provider, allows me to authenticate into my mobile application. So this is just for demo. You can see that I got my access token back from the Microsoft Azure.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's pretty much to conclude my
so some
demo
nice
here.
compatibility, whereas you can use, of course, Google accounts, but also going back into Azure, right?
Right.
Perfect. Well done. All right. Hey, let me wrap this up, and we'll take some questions. Our platform is usually to keep these around 30 minutes to let everyone be productive. So I will take I'm sorry, did you anything last points?
No, I think we can probably wrap this in our presentation. Anyone interested, we can certainly distribute our presentation slides to the audience.
Yeah, I will definitely do that, and we'll take questions. Okay. I'm trying to make this.
Yeah, if we have a few minutes, actually, I want to highlight things like for the more
Sure.
considerations. If the enterprise really consider the Microsoft Azure as a platform, like a few years ago, when I look at the Microsoft Azure platform, I asked myself the question. We already have the AWS, right? Why Microsoft, right? And when I dig into the capability Microsoft is offering, I think the actually directory identity provider, those capabilities for the single sign-on authentication, that's actually put Microsoft in a very unique place and advantage, right? So it's not like a platform for you to just have a bunch of Windows servers, database servers. It's more like a identity solution.
I couldn't agree more, Julian. What I saw as the strongest thing is when we started digging this deeply a couple of months ago is not only have the scalable directory for your enterprise and for your B2C, but it's the built-in identity provider mechanisms to dialogue with the other applications. So it's ludicrously powerful. Okay, let's wrap this up. And as I said, I'll have this deck and send it out to the attendees and the registrants. Here are the demos. A little about OSC. We're a full-service advanced IT consulting firm. If you look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see that I've used OSC for many years and attest as a user of technology and a creator of technology, their services. Just amazing abilities around identity and security. So we can write some real hot applications that you can be assured that will scale and be secure. Of course, we have our Microsoft certifications, a bunch of patents, and 3 PhDs on staff. We have the architects. It's immaterial what the application is that we write, whether it's .NET, Java, or some other platform. Also specializing in APIs for service-to-service architectures. Identity and access is one of our key specialties, and I'm not going to go into it because I let Julian take as much time as he needed. But you can ping us, and we have this stuff down. Okay, here is a slide I'll leave up for the team out there. Additional information about Microsoft Azure AD and how to connect with us. Let me just read off a few questions I have here. Here, Julian, I think you answered this one, but maybe it came in later or whatever. Could this user use his on-premise IDP with Azure AD?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is back to like putting my hat as an enterprise architect. Usually when you plan to use a new platform, even not using that today, you definitely need to define and consider the strategy and the roadmap. And you have an on-premises AD, and you have a cloud AD. And that's totally normal. You depending on the size of the organization, you may want to try things on the cloud and see how that works out. And the Microsoft Azure also provide the tools for you to synchronize the ADs. It's very common that you keep the AD on premises for your local office access, things like that. At the same time, you synchronize with the cloud. So that's very, very common.
This is a Microsoft question. David, can you hear us still?
Yes. Hi, Garrett.
Perfect. Yeah. What is the? Where does this attendee find out about pricing? Is that on the website, or can we direct them somewhere?
Yeah, actually, all of the pricing is published on the website. The one key thing to call out is Azure is the pricing model is not exactly like traditional software pricing. It's how much it's by consumption. So how much of the service you consume is how much you pay. If you consume very little, you pay very little.
Nice.
And most services have a free tier to start with, and that is the case with Azure AD as well. And then also Azure AD B2C, and something like free up to 50,000 users, for example, something like that. And then also at a very high consumption levels, there's also opportunities to engage our sales specialists for enterprise agreements discussions, which you can get at higher volume discounts, stuff like that.
Got it. Got it. Last, I'll bring up, I think I have a contact slide for us individually, and I'll take this question while I show this. Is OSC offering anything for application integration? Yes. Glad you asked because I didn't make the slide, but we have a quick start program for one application integrated. Set up your Azure AD how you need it, either the B2C or the BDE, and we will do that for $2,500. Okay, that being said, let me thank David Chou from Microsoft, and look him up on Amazon and check out any of his 3 books on Microsoft platform and Java and other technologies. So thank you very much, David.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Julian.
And Julian, thank you for the wonderful demo. And audience, thanks for being with our audience. We'll address more of these questions, and we will have both the presentation and the webinar up online, because I believe I've been informed that we overfilled the capacity of our online webinar. So that's good to know. Okay, everyone, thanks for your time, and thanks for joining. All the best.